Yo, what is up everyone? Back here with another video. In today's video, we are going to be breaking down how Pokemon absolutely has changed their competitive game for pretty much the rest of its existence, unless they eventually revert some decisions. It's going to be absolutely insane to go over these changes with you guys because this is the first time in history in the past 13 years of the game that something like this has like really been changed. So it's going to be honestly like absolutely wild to talk about. Now, if you guys enjoy the video, please be sure to, like, subscribe, support the content, check out the links down below, all that stuff. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So what exactly happened? So basically, Pokemon came out and put out their rule book. Now, normally this sounds really boring. You're like, okay, it's a rule book. Who cares? But they actually did change stuff. So normally Pokemon is a game where you don't have information on the other opponent's team, right? You don't have information on their Terra types. You don't have information on their, teams themselves, right? Now, the problem with this game is that terrestrialization is polarizing enough where not having the Terra types be known is actually very like detrimental to the quality of the game, at least in like tournament level competitions. And it makes cases where like players who like newer players who aren't as integrated into the community are at a like information disadvantage compared to the top players, because the top players obviously know people, they'll talk, they'll share info with each other, whereas new players, they kind of don't have that benefit, right? So essentially what Pokemon said was, okay, now all the information on your teams is public besides the EVs and IVs, so like your stats essentially, right? But besides your stats, everything about your team is public. And they actually put this in the rulebook here in 1.5. The 2023 Video Game Championship season will utilize an open team list format. Players are required to perform legible and accurate lists that complete the team. All Pokemon information provided on team list seen below will be made available to the opponent, except for their stats. So essentially, they get to see everything except for stats. Now, what does this mean for competitive Pokemon as a whole? I personally think it is a net positive and it's a win for the newer players that are getting into this game, right? And this is coming from someone who has been in the community for like 5 years playing consistently, right? I think for new players, this is good because now if you're playing at a tournament and you have a team, your opponent won't know your Terra types without you knowing theirs, right? This is something that can be an issue, especially when you're just getting into the game of like top players having a lot more information than you. And like, don't get me wrong, it's part of the game, as long as it's in the rule set. And now that it's open team list, I do think it's a little bit more fair to everyone, where the information is going to be kind of equal between all the parties. Now, what will this look like in tournament, right? So we've actually had the benefit of seeing what an open team list tournament that was huge already looked like, right? And that was this limitless tournament that just happened. And probably, I'm assuming Victory Road, which is another tournament organizer, they have a big tournament this weekend, will be probably adjusting the open team list because of how the everything ended up playing out. Now, what does this mean in terms of, how it'll change teams and stuff? Teams essentially now just have to like rely less on gimmicks and more on consistency, right? So when you're in an open team list format, teams are centered around more consistent strategies, and it's focused on utilizing that information to give yourself an advantage. So there's no like basically surprise gimmicks or like surprise moves you can pull out, but I do think that helps with the competitive integrity of the game. Essentially too, and this is something I also wanted to touch on, I think the biggest issue of casting in Pokemon specifically is that casters can't freely talk about information because it's closed sheet, which actually results in worse casting of the stuff, because you don't actually know like what's gonna happen, right? You don't know what the Pokemon do. But when you actually know what the Pokemon do and you can talk about it, it actually allows the casters to create better narratives and create like better stories. And by no means am I like a like professional caster or anything. I don't know much about that, but I think from watching stuff, sometimes like having to hear the casters like be like, oh, well, it might be this, and not being able to talk about specific sets, even though they know what it is, because usually they do, right? It's kind of like, it feels almost like not fully there. And like, I think that giving the casters the tools to actually be able to talk about the games and the sets and everything makes it a more like enjoyable viewer experience as well, right? And I just think that beyond just like the actual tournament implications and the ramifications of that, you actually get like a lot of benefits out of open team list, right? I think too, it also allows the best players to win, right? So like if you are a really solid player and you're playing consistently, you'll never not win because of a like information disadvantage. That's why I think it's beneficial for everyone, honestly, because if you're a top player, you're thinking, okay, like yeah, now I have everyone's information and they have mine. I'm gonna play better, right? And then newer players also have the advantage there because it's not like, oh yeah, these top players know my information and are like arguably gonna outplay me or whatever, right? I actually have a good opportunity to know their team and what they do, and I can formulate good game plans around that information to at least give me a better opportunity to beat them. Because now that you know what their team does, you can formulate a better game plan, which means less in the game like decision making that you have to outplay your opponent essentially, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that like, you know, the better player doesn't win. It's just more so that it gives more opportunities to really prepare for things, right? So what is it like in the end, right? Like what is my general take on this and what should you take away from this? I think that if you are a player who is planning on playing this season and you were disappointed by the open team list, I would just mostly say just keep in mind that it does give more opportunities to those who don't have access to the like as much information, right? It does actually help players learn the game, I think, because now when they see things in tournament, they're going to be like, okay, so this is what people are using. This makes sense why they're using it. It's consistent, and this is something that maybe I should consider implementing. Also, because everything's open team list, team info from all tournaments are more public now, which is really good. Because essentially now, if I want to look at like a results list of, you know, like pretty much worlds or regional or anything, it's all open team list. I'll be able to look at any team I want and like see their sets. I won't be able to see the EVs and IVs, but it's cool. You get a lot more information from the player base. You get to see a lot more of the cool things going around. You know, you get to see like, yeah, this guy, he ran, you know, a Moongus Goldango, like Hydreigon, the standard core, but he ran a different item or something, right? Like, oh, there's another one of these teams down here. I want to see what this looks like. You look at the different stuff. You can literally see everyone's team from the tournament. And I think that that's an incredibly cool resource. And I just think it's really cool if you're like trying to examine the metagame. It makes it better for content creators. They can actually look at the teams that are doing well and actually analyze them and not have to like kind of look all over Twitter for the sets, you know? You get access to like all these different means for better content, for better, you know, production with casting, for just being more accessible to players. There's just so many benefits to it that I really think that they outweigh any negatives that you could potentially have from it. And you know, in a way, like I'm happy they made this choice. I wasn't really sure what they were gonna do. And obviously everyone's entitled to their own opinion. If you think it's a bad thing, like feel free, tell me down below why you think so, you know? And I think that that's the best thing about like anything is like you can have opinions on it. But I genuinely think this is a positive thing for the community. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Make sure to let me know down below what you guys think. Also too, you know, keep an eye out on, you know, my Twitter and also, you know, my Discord. I post a bunch of any announcements related to VGC there and tournaments that are coming up. So you can definitely keep an eye out for that and just kind of see what's going on. As always, guys, thank you so much for the support. I incredibly appreciate it as always. It means a lot that you guys watch and support my videos. And I'll see you guys next one. Peace.